Welcome to Happily Ever After, the podcast where we talk about life's big stories. From great sex to sexual trauma, breakups and breakdowns, icky secrets, and happy endings. It's the stuff that makes us human, and boy, do we cover it all. I'm your host, Hannah Harvey. I'm a writer and a parenting blogger at mumsdays.com. That's mumsdays.com. I would be very grateful if you could subscribe and leave a review because it means more people can find the podcast. And I also really love hearing from you. So please contact me through Instagram at mumsdays with all your stories of life and any thoughts you might have on the episode or even questions you want answering. You can find all the details from this episode in the show notes. Hello and welcome to Happily Ever After with me, Hannah. And today I have a very special guest. I've got Jambo Dragon here with me. Hi, Jambo.
Hi, Hannah.
Thank you so much for coming on. I know you are like the busiest person in yoga. Is that about right?
That's definitely, I don't know about the busiest, but it feels like busy, yes.
Feels like it. Yeah. So when I was trying to write up your bio, I was like, wow, dude, this is actually really hard because you do so much. It's like you've basically created this career traveling the world, teaching people everything that you know, like these amazing things that you love and that really make a massive difference. So it's like you really like breathing. That's something. So there's like all the breathing side of things, but then there's, which you did a TEDx on.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. And then obviously you've got your meditation, your ceremony, you are a guardian, like a Forrest Yoda guardian. So you've recently just spent 14 days with me, teaching me how to become a yoga teacher. You've worked with Fern Cotton, you've worked with the BBC, and every time I look on your website, you've got a new online course. I'm like, fuck, this dude is busy. So
yeah,
how have you got here? And when do you sleep?
Sleep? What sleep? No, I'm joking. That is so not true. I'm actually a very greedy sleeper. I get between 7 and 9 hours a night. Nice. And unless I get somewhere close to that, I'm not a happy bunny and I don't really want to go to work. So I make it a habit to ensure that I definitely can sleep for that number of hours. I think that the best way that I can answer you is by saying that I grew up with meditation and ceremony. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't something that I feel as though I had to spend a lot of time learning how to do because it was already just a daily thing. You know, we have when I grew up and became an adult yogi and immersed within the industry of yoga, people would be very interested on doing things on new moon and full moon days. Mm-hmm. But we always had to do this stuff. You had to go to the altar. You had to clean it. You had to light incense. You had to say prayers, whether you wanted to or not. You know, it's just a thing that you had to do. So I feel as though I've had like a lifetime of listening to those types of prayers being shared. So I feel as though I have that as a bank within me. And then when it came to the meditation practice, it very much was, here's a technique. You work with it, and then eventually the technique teaches you how to meditate, if you like. So sorry?
So like sticking with it and just keeping going.
That's right. I was just having this conversation with somebody that I also in this kind of context of being interviewed on a podcast. And so we were talking about how the spiritual practice eventually becomes the teacher in itself. And so I was lucky that I didn't have to do hundreds of meditation courses. And, you know, like yoga teacher trainings don't have a lot of meditation processes in them. So I wasn't introduced to them within a format of taking a course. But I've been around in enough yoga classes to see how people enjoy meditation processes. And I've just really learned from guiding people from doing it that way, sharing it, of course, sharing my own experiences of my own internal experiences of meditation whilst doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel as though that's kind of like always been in the bag. It's always been something that I've just done. I've never had to like put in a lot of extra thought or anything like that to it. And then the other stuff with working with other people, I feel as though every now and again, I feel very blessed to have an invitation to work with some really exciting people, just like yourself. And it just happens, I feel as though, how does it happen? By actually being in line with my purpose. That's how it happens. Like, I'm not seeking people out to interview me or to work with me or to talk with me or anything like that. I mean, if you look at my social media, I don't even really market. I just share, really. And then often people will ask me, hey, what's your marketing strategy? And I don't have one. I just want to share. And then what is it that I'm sharing? Like you said, the stuff that I love. I just love it. And I forget certain sequences like acupressure sequences or bodywork sequences or recipes of various types. I often forget about them until somebody asks me, hey, have you got a technique for this? And then something out of my heart comes out, and then I share it. So when you said that you come on my website and then you see an extra course, it's often because I've had enough questions. And the questions from the community is actually all that I need to go, okay, I want to show you how to do this. And I prefer doing it that way because I feel as though then I'm serving rather than dictating to start off with. And so it's my community that really inspires me.
Wow. So good, Jambo, honestly, because I've been thinking a lot about online courses and just where to go next. And I feel like I've learned so much of the divorce process and all that kind of stuff that I would like to share that stuff, but then it's like, does anybody want that? Or, have I lost interest enough to make it count? And I wanted to get onto this later on about like finding your purpose, but I think the main thing is just waiting to see what turns up.
Okay. Well, I would like to add to that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I just wrote a training called Your Trauma is the Trajectory. And so the idea is that whatever has happened for many reasons that cannot be defined by my tiny human mind. But what I can tell you from experiences of trauma is that we have a choice. When we have had a scar, whether it's physical or emotional, how does that scar make us move now? And the management of that scar, how does that enable us to move differently within the world? So when we have an emotional or a physical scar, we have another level of awareness of how we then choose to participate within the rest of the world. And what I mean by that is you have an awareness of relationships, women who have gone through what you've gone through before, possibly even men and everyone else in between, because you've gone through that. Now, I've never gone through a divorce.
Yet.
And so I am not going to be sensitive to some of the anxieties that will be in the room. Now, so for example, when we were in yoga teacher training, I would say, please don't say that because it can be triggering for somebody who's burned or drowned or, whatever, because of whatever awareness I have around those types of emotional scars and physical scars. But you have this awareness. Now, you could literally walk into a room and have an awareness of relationships and the way that people interact in them and the stresses that come with them as well. And I'm not going to have what you have there. And you've had to go through all that you've gone through. And I know it was a lot. I wasn't there with you the whole way, but from what I saw, you did a lot of work in that time. And so when our trauma is our trajectory comes into play, when we can appreciate that, okay, this has happened to me. And as a result of this happening to me, I'm now shit hot at these list of things. I'm just shit hot at them. Naturally, I've not had to do a qualification. I'm just now really good at this stuff because of what I've gone through. And that's what you share. So like, when you said that about like, is it still interesting? Like, how do I execute it? I would say, Hannah, tell me, please, what are your top five things that I can be aware of if I was going through a divorce right now? And then it would be, Hannah, what are your top 3, 5 tips on how to have a conversation, the first conversation with a legal advisor or whatever, or like, Hannah, can you give me your 3 top tips on how do I have an interpersonal relationship or even dialogue with the person that I'm divorcing at the beginning and the middle, at the end? How do I make it so that we can do this in an amicable way? You're going to have lists of this stuff compared to somebody who doesn't have lists of that stuff.
Interesting. And I think the other thing about doing stuff online is it can often be quite quiet. So you're doing things and you don't necessarily always know what's resonating. And it's not until much later on that someone might be like, oh, I listened to your podcast about when should you leave, for example. And it was really helpful. And I'm like, shit, I did that like 7 months ago. And I didn't know if it was being helpful or not. So a lot of the times you've just got to share, because especially when people are going through a trauma like a divorce, maybe they don't actually want to talk to anyone, but that doesn't mean that they're not looking for stuff.
Right. It's like people who are watching, but they don't tell you that they're watching, and they can't because maybe they're still in a sticky part of the relationship and it would be too risky to follow the Instagram handle that's Divorce R Us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You might still be like 3 years away from your divorce, but you're still interested and you're still wanting to know what are the signs I need to be looking out for.
Yes. I can confirm that over a couple of decades of teaching now, every now and again, I will hear from somebody who I haven't seen or heard from in years. And they'll drop a message and say, just want to let you know that what you said to me those number of years ago could be something like, I wasn't ready for it, but now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or you said something years ago and it's still stuck with me. And just because we're not receiving flowers and cards for every single time somebody thinks about us.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe this. I want
a bouquet.
Flowers. I want a bouquet. I want a card and a box of truffles.
Obviously. I want people to throw roses at me like I'm on stage. Yes. You just have to keep going, because every now and again you'll get that little glimmer from somebody who's like, that really, really helped. I'm like, oh, this is why I'm doing it. Because you got to forget sometimes.
Yeah. And I think we also have to be very careful that when we forget to continue, as opposed to require, and I understand this, like when we get caught up in external validation, I understand that. I have that process too, where I'll make a post and I'll be like, how come it's not reached anywhere? And then I'll do my whole, oh, this is like probably a bit shit. And then it'll take me a few days later for me to realize that whatever social media platform I'm using has just decided to change its algorithm without letting its users know. It's like there's a game of life and you're not letting me know what the rules are, which is really how life works. But social media, life's already treating us like that. We don't need you to treat us like that.
Please just be a robot.
Yeah, exactly.
What I need to do.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's tricky. But so one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, because I mean, it's been so helpful for me working with you in particular, and I know your BBC meditation is on this very subject, but it's around anxiety. Because I don't know about you, but I just felt like definitely the last few months there's been even more than usual around, and I wasn't sure if it's me projecting or whether, like speaking to friends and things online, it just seems to be running through our lives as a society much more. And I don't know if you've noticed this too.
Much more, much more. It's actually been something that I've been talking about quite a lot. And there are several different factors to what's going on. And the first thing I will say is that thousands of years ago, a spiritual practice evolved because humanity was being so distracted by the natural forces. And then eventually we were so distracted by natural forces that we experience a form of suffering. And so spiritual practices help to, they touch the physical body, emotional body, psychological body, and all that kind of stuff. But really, what they do is they help to heal the spirit. And now, what we have to remember is that we are, especially post-pandemic as well. And, if you think about it, post-pandemic, nobody has gone and said, oh, I need to go to the countryside. Everyone's gone, I need to go to the things that were no longer open, that were not open during the pandemic, which is not natural environments. It's like the restaurant or the nightclub or the bar or all that kind of stuff. And so as time goes on, we're moving further and further away from that which is natural, which causes anxiety. We already know that being out in nature reduces anxiety. Breathing fresh air reduces anxiety, but we're not encouraged to do that. And as social media continues to wildly expand in its way, and it's supposed to do that kind of stuff, and at the same time, rainforests and all that kind of stuff are being destroyed. We're moving even further away from that which is natural than we ever have been in the history of humanity. Then on top of that, what we're exposed to is not only overstimulus, but we're exposed to lots of people telling us how we can be better. And then the people who are telling us how to be better aren't necessarily evolved people. And so I'll give you an example. Recently, I've been noticing on social media a lot of movement specialists have been saying things such as stop stretching and do functional movement patterns instead. Why? The argument is that people who exist now, we move differently to how we moved even just 100 years ago. There's even more sitting and standing than before. There's less walking and less kind of like multiple ranges. We don't climb ladders and trees and all that kind of stuff as much as we used to. So functional movement sequences are very important to satisfy the suffering that is caused by modern day living. Yes, I understand that. But the yogis did the exact same thing. They looked at nature. They were like, okay, how does nature move? And how can we mimic that to serve what the people need now or what they needed during that time? So, and then of course, and on top of that, there's this artificial intelligence. So basically, we're moving away from the intelligence that is inherent within life itself. And we're relying on intelligence that is being dictated to us is intelligence. I mean, artificial intelligence, yes, it is that. But now we're being pushed, right? Like everyone should know how to use AI, ChatGPT. I mean, and I love all this stuff. I find it very useful. I find it very entertaining, and I like to keep up with this kind of thing. But if that is all that you have, and you don't breathe, you don't go outside, you don't recognize the sky, the view. You're like, I mean, I've got a gorgeous view outside now of just hills, and it's just green and then clouds and sky. If you're not connected to this stuff, then you're only connected to one form of intelligence. There's a shitload of intelligence outside. Like yesterday, it was my birthday, and it was also my friend's, somebody that grew up, it was her funeral. And I was walking into the car that I was getting picked up in, and as I opened the door, a murder of crows just appeared. And crows are symbolic of showing up at times of transitions. And I could have gone into the day of thinking, oh, this is really sad. Oh yeah, birthday and death at the same time. There are lots of different types of tears. And then I had a moment where these crows showed up, and what I was shown by the intelligence of nature itself was, this is a time of transition. To transit. Get on Jambo, just change, like, look, to go from Newcastle to Glasgow, you're just going to have to change at Edinburgh. You have to. So just make that transition. Just do it. So I hope I'm making sense, because what I'm trying to say is that nature and that which is natural has a quality of intelligence for us that we're disconnected.
Yeah, we're not tapping into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it. And I feel like being online, which I know is like everybody's talking about it, everybody knows it's not great for you, but it's just really hitting home more and more for me now, because I was on TikTok the other day. I don't really do much on there, but every now and again I'll check in, and the algorithm showed me this really horrible video. And I'm like, I'm a mum who talks about parenting. Why have they shown me this? And it was just before bed. So then it like completely kicked my nervous system. And I had to like spend an hour reading a book just to kind of come down. And I'm like, shit, man, who is, it wasn't put as explicit or anything. And I'm like, my children at some point, or like, teenagers are seeing this stuff. And children in particular, it's like whenever I speak to my mum about the teenagers that she's coming into contact with, they're really struggling. I'm like, what do we do, Jambo? How do I protect my kids from this?
Connect them to the innate intelligence that is within them. Teach them how to feel. Teach them how to develop and connect to their intuition, which is, like people will ask, what do you have that artificial intelligence does not? You have the ability to heal the spirit. You have the ability to intuit based on having a good relationship with your feelings. Now, it's very important that we spend just a little bit of extra time here, because we also live in an age where we will say to people, especially the next generation, do what feels right. That's not the best cue. Because, okay, you know what, Mom? What feels right now is if you let me out and I want to go drinking with my friends. I'm only 12 or 14 or whatever, but that's what I feel like doing. So we actually need to spend time helping the next generation learn how to feel with discernment and feel the truth. And what better way to do that but than just use nature itself? I mean, most people now, and I say people, not even young people, don't know where a vegetable comes from. They don't know. Like most people now wouldn't know how to be lost in the woods. I mean, we live in the UK. They're hardly jungles. Do you know what I mean? But learning how to navigate through life as an actual instinctual animal is going to help us refine our relationship with our senses. When we refine our relationship with our senses, we're then able to understand or perceive the truth. And if we don't do that, what we're exposed to is our senses being bombarded with all of these accounts that are telling us what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is not true. And that's not the way to live our lives. And here, the other thing I would suggest is that, and I'm not saying that I don't go to bed with my phone, because I have a weird habit of enjoying to learn something before I go to sleep. So I understand going to bed with your phone, but I'll say this. When you go to bed and open TikTok, it's like inviting the whole pub into your bedroom.
Into your bed. Which I have done in the past.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have.
Only kidding.
No.
But no, I know what you mean.
And
you might do it because we're working. Like if you're online, you're like, you'll know you've got an online channels and stuff. It's like the scrolling and the catching up with comments, and like get some boundaries. Don't do TikTok at fucking 9 o'clock at night.
Yes. And then, because I'm on social media all the time, but it's short bursts. Mm-hmm. It's like 15-20 minute bursts, and I'm doing stuff, and then I just get on with it, and I see that as a little bit of like, checking in office time.
Yeah.
because that's the platform that people are communicating on now. And then social media experts will teach us how to use these strap lines, like, don't stretch, stretching is bad for you. And stretching isn't bad for you, but that's what they're told to do to get more attention. And then they get loads of attention, and then they're considered the expert. And you're like, it's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
It's not true.
That's the other thing. It's just loads of words that aren't necessarily true.
That's right.
Our brain is spending all this time being like, what's true? What's false? What should I be doing? What do I need to spend my time on? Like, I've got about 20 different things that I want to do. And you're like, well, I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I possibly do them all? But it seems like so-and-so online's doing it all the time.
Yeah. I think people just have very different ways of doing stuff. Like I think people have different levels of being organized. And I feel that it's just down to that. Like when I look at the way that social media managers encourage us to do things, it's very much like spend every Wednesday afternoon a couple of hours preparing all of these posts or preparing all these reels and all that kind of stuff. But we're people, right? We're people, we're empathic, we're intuitive, we're very heart-based people, and we would just want to share what is organic in the moment. And then a social media manager will say, well, you would hold your people better if you strategically do it in this way. So I need to do a little bit of both. Like, let's say I have like the warrior heart thing coming out, then I'll prepare a couple of posts that I'll have rolling out over the next couple of weeks. But you still have to be you and have to have that organic experience of you. Otherwise, that exercise in itself keeps us trapped in that, or what's intelligent? You need both.
You do. You definitely do. And I think if you just rely on the heartfelt post every day, you fall into a trap of being like, oh God, I need to like bare my soul for Instagram later, and I can't think of anything.
That's right. That's right.
But you definitely need a bit of both.
You definitely need a bit of both. There's something that I would like to share though around anxiety and purpose, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, please.
And
because I know lots of people come to you with this. They're like, what do I do with myself?
Okay. Well, first of all, we recognize where is the anxiety coming from, because a lot of people out there are going to be anxious because of work. Like, we have this really interesting narrative in the world right now around money. Everyone's afraid that money's disappearing. Money has never vanished off the planet. If anything, as time goes on, the planet makes more money. And also, everyone needs to remember that money is a made-up thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember which leader said this, but it was a very interesting quote where, when all of the rivers and the oceans have dried out, and when all of the trees have stopped bearing fruit and all of the animals have died, humans will finally realize that we can't eat money. I can't remember which genius said that, but it's always stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to remember why we have anxiety. And so, like, let's say you have anxiety because you have a job, right? And, jobs these days are not always supportive of the individual. Often they're ways to coax you to do something so that somebody else can get rich, for example. But anyway, or you don't like your job, and maybe you have anxiety because you dislike what you do. Well, then you need to sort that out. Like, there's nothing that you can do. You can do all the meditation in the world, but it's an elastoplast over the issue that you're really facing, which is you can't fucking stand your job.
Yeah.
So the anxiety that I really want to focus on is when an anxiety because of an unknown fear. This is something that I'm very, very interested in at the moment. And it's actually come about because of the times I spend on planes. And I noticed recently when there was some turbulence, there's a little bit more of a fright on the plane. Whereas before the pandemic, I never remembered within myself or with the other passengers that people would just go, we're just going through turbulence. But these days I've noticed, there's a little bit more fright present. And so when that happens, it's usually because there's already an embedded experience of anxiety or fear. And then the whatever is going on triggers that within us. And so I identify with this anxiety as the fear of the unknown. And a lot of people are afraid of what's going to happen next. Like people don't know if they have enough money to pay their electric bill, it's et cetera, et cetera. And so what happens in East Asian medicine is that when we are in fear, when we're in fright and anxiety, the spirit isn't grounded within us. Our spirit isn't grounded within us. And when our spirit isn't grounded within us, we're not focused. So it's like when we're full of spirit, we're happy, we're joyous, we take things in our stride, we're very well, not very, but we're more accepting of things that can arise.
Yes.
Like when we have more spirit embodied, like, well, it doesn't really matter because I'm having such a wonderful existence. Our existence is wonderful, so it doesn't really matter, right? So how do we get to that point? And that's really what I want to talk about. So there's a particular acupressure sequence, and you know how I love to teach this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share. And there's 2 points. One of them is called Kidney 25, and the other is called Heart 7. And so with a combination of these 2 points together actually invites spirit in to our body, and then spirit because spirit is so much wiser than us, it takes over. And this particular sequence I find extremely down-regulating. Like I love to do it right before I go to sleep because it just knocks me out. But also if I have like an unnecessary fear, like, in my work, one of the things that I sometimes become fearful about is, will people like my work and will people understand me? And the reason why I often have that thought is because I don't see anyone else that's doing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And how I'm doing it. And sometimes I create days that feel very radical and I get fearful. Oh gosh, like what if these people think I finally lost the plot? But then the reason mind, like when I'm in my intelligence state, will go, lad, you've done this for the last decade. You just created stuff that is suitable for the people that you're working with. Like, get over yourself. You've been doing this for such a long time. Why are you still worried about it, right? Yeah. So this kind of sequence helps with that. So first of all, you locate the collarbone. Mm-hmm. And then underneath the collarbone, between the collarbone and the second rib, there's an intercostal space between the rib cage. So this is kidney 27. And then you want to go, so collarbone, first rib, in between those two. Sternum is here, and I'm just off of the sternum. My fingers are in these spaces that just fit in between the ribs. So this is kidney 27 here, and you want to go down one, and that's kidney 26. And then you want to go down another one. This is kidney 25. And so if you hold here and make some circles until you can locate some sensitive areas. And then once you've got those sensitive areas, hold and breathe deeply. So kidney 25 is known as the storehouse of the spirit. It's like the garage or the storage room where you keep the things that you really, really need to have, that you can't really throw away for many reasons. But this is the storehouse of the spirit. So we're now going into that part of where spirit resides within us. And we're like, okay, we need to make some room in here. We need to clean things up. We need to redecorate. And like when I hold here, I always imagine something like a really big warehouse, mm-hmm. Just a huge warehouse where it's just full of, like, if I imagined like what kind of warehouse would I go into that would get me really, really excited, would probably be one of those warehouses where all the crystals and all of the minerals and all of the supplements were stored, and I'd be like, oh my word, this is paradise, like something like that. Yeah.
I was thinking of Stacey Solomon does like a massive decluttering thing, and she literally empties someone's house and puts it in a warehouse, and they have to go through the whole lot and decide what they're getting rid of.
Amazing. I think you told me about her before.
Have I?
Yeah.
Sounds like me.
Okay. And then so after kidney 25, we'll be here for a couple of minutes. Then we go to heart 7, which is located underneath the little finger side of the wrist. And there's a little spot in here where you can just shove your fingertip in. And it's like a different type of ache, maybe a different type of sensitivity. And heart 7 is known as the gateway of the spirit. So this is literally the door where we open to invite spirit in. Now, the heart houses the spirit. So when we're working on these heart points here, we're inviting the spirit to be embodied and grounded within the heart. And when we can do that, we have more heart intelligence. And heart intelligence is better than brain intelligence. And so to add on to the piece that we were talking about earlier, you know, if we can't get our young people into nature, then get them into their hearts. But, you know, nothing is going to beat the power of that, which is natural. Like, I keep looking out the window here because it's just gorgeous. And, you know, we are human beings. We're part of nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's just part of it. And so the more that we separate ourselves from the thing that we're part of, no wonder we have anxiety.
Yeah. And there's so much, I just think agoraphobia is huge now as well. People just not wanting to go. And I get it too sometimes. I'll be like, I've just come home. I feel knackered. I've just dropped the kids off. I'm on my own now. I don't want to go out. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to see anyone. And the problem with that, especially if you're a bit of an extrovert, is it makes you feel worse. It's like even just getting out and going to the beach can feel too much. But actually, that's the thing. That's the medicine.
That's the medicine. Let's do the other side, yeah. So we're in Newcastle here. So I think my closest chunk of space like that, aside from the fields right in front of me here, is probably Jesmond Dean.
Yeah.
And then or even the River Tyne, you know. And then I'll make up these excuses of no, because I'll bump into someone and then I won't be peaceful. I'll just end up having a conversation or whatever. Okay. And then I go, right, you're going to go outside and you're going to stand on the grass. If that's how you're being, just get your ass outside, stand next to a tree. You know, everyone will think, and you know, I grew up in a time where standing next to a tree meant you were an idiot, you know?
What does it mean now?
What does it mean now? Well, there are fewer trees now. So I think people just have different attitudes about standing by a tree now, you know?
It's so magical being in the woods, though. When you actually go into woods, there's definitely like sprites and fairies and like, you can just feel it. You just can't, like, that's where stories are born.
Yeah. Yes. Actually, there's something else I'd like to add. I heard a lyric earlier on today where I don't know a problem that was too big for a dance.
Ooh.
You know, and I thought, I mean, obviously there are problems that you can't sort out with a dance, but it just made me think about human movement. Moving out of just
probably about like distraction as well. Like while you're moving your body, you're not obsessing and overthinking.
Yes.
And then that gives your heart and your intuition time to go, here's the solution.
That's it. That's it. And then you know yourself, eventually it gets to a point where your feelings transition to an experience of deep knowing. And that is where I would like to see the next generation of people being taken to. Like the deep, like I know that is the best decision for me right now. I just know. And I feel that comes from learning how to be inside and learning to be able to, like, you know, if they can compare what happens to them after they've been out in nature versus what happens to them after they've been on the internet all day, things like that will eventually show the next generation where the answers really are.
Yeah. But I mean, even we know it's hard it takes an amount of like being your own parent and going, you are going to go outside and you are going to breathe and you are going to walk and you are going to potentially have to talk to somebody you don't want to, but you know, and that it's learning that stuff, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So there's also that, which is why people like yourself, you know, and doing what you're doing in the world is really important because, the more people that learn how to just basically parent themselves, the faster we're going to move through this.
Yeah. I wrote like a list of 30 things that I felt were great from my 30s, because a lot of my 30s, like second half especially, was a bit hard and a bit sad. And so I think when I was turning 40, I was like, oh, feeling like I was dreading it. But really, I realized it's because I was feeling like the last 5 years almost were wasted. It's like, that isn't true at all. So I'd written like 30 things that were great from my 30s. And one of them was becoming obsessed with steps. Because it's like, not the band, don't get
Walking steps.
like walking, like going like, you need to get your 10,000 steps.
Yeah.
And if it's like a checky list,
yeah,
you don't have to think about it anymore.
Okay.
Just fucking go for a walk and get your 10,000 steps.
That's it. That's it.
And that's self-parenting, isn't it? That kind
That's
of
it.
creating checklists for your day that are going to help you whether you like it or not.
That's it. That's it. Like, waking up in the morning. How about that one?
On bed.
No, that's not my biggest battle. My biggest battle with that one is probably when to go to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to bed. Yeah. And so I have to say to myself, like, all right, tomorrow you got a big day. You did really awesome today. Like, good enough today. I have to do this chat with myself and then, about 20 minutes later, when I'm still in that chat, then I can get to a point where I can go, okay, Jambo, just go to bed right now. But sometimes it takes 15, 20 minutes of that self-talk.
Yeah. Definitely. Even like when you're in bed, okay, now I'm going to put my phone down.
Yes.
So I guess to finish off, I've got a couple of little notes here about because I remember when I first turned up to yoga teacher training and you're like, why aren't you looking at me? What's going on? And I was like, I just don't know what to do with my life anymore. And you started to tell me about your 40s and the fact that your nose is your 40s.
That's right.
And like big time of transition.
That's right.
So would you mind reminding me what you said?
Okay, I'll try to remember, but I'd imagine that I was talking about critical transitions, which it's funny that we talk about this now because it's something that I want to post about later on today. Oh. So the critical transitions are usually when we move through decades, and they usually happen a couple of years before. So like, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, like that kind of, maybe even 43. It depends on the shape of the nose. So the nose is symbolic of your 40s. The eyes and eyebrows are symbolic of your 30s. So most people have the upper bridge of the nose going inwards, right? And then the nose comes out. Yeah. So the more parts of your face come out are indicative of when we are out in the world. So most people during 30s and 40s have this transition of feeling as though they either feel as though they want to go inwards and be more reflective, or they try to push themselves out there and it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not meant to be like that. So can I return your head to the side? Let's have a look at yours. Okay, so yours goes in quite deeply, right? So I would say for your early 40s, it's time to go inwards. It's time to be more reflective. It's time to prepare yourself for the mid 40s onwards, because that's when things are going to go crazy, like crazy out there in the world. So what is it that you need to prepare yourself to do or to have? And like, I remember during my early 40s, so I'm 42 now, but when we look at the ages of the face, it's always 1 year more. So I'm now 43. We consider East Asia, we consider the time that you are in the womb is your first year. So when you're born, you're one.
Okay.
The idea of that. And so although you're now 40, you're actually 41. So you probably just got one more year of needing to be quiet and stuff, and then it'll become interesting again. Now, I remember, I remember when I was like 40, either 40 or 41. I can't remember which one it was. Feeling it was 40. I feeling it was 40, but it felt like hell for me because I was having to do all this stuff online. And there was a couple of events that just turned really, really sour. And I only agreed to do them because, I mean, like, I've never really cared about a very big event, but on this particular occasion, it was a very big event, lots of speakers. I thought, okay, I'll participate because I don't do this kind of thing. But it actually went completely not in a good way. And I suffered a lot from it. But actually, in hindsight now, when I look back, I realized I was supposed to go through that critical transition. So what I'm saying for anybody that is moving through their decades, it's often people will feel as though they want to be reflective of what they've achieved or what they haven't achieved and where they want to go next. Yeah. Actually, during the period of a critical transition, an ideal question or a better question to ask yourself is, who do I want to be when I'm 45? Because that's who you should be living as now. Right? Because you've never been 45 before. You know what it's like to get through your 30s and you're now 40 and you're probably worrying about how to be a 40-year-old. Well, a 40-year-old will have the sense and the experience to prepare to be 45.
When my nose suddenly goes, right. Got quite a pointy nose.
That's right. So later on in your 40s, even better,
Oh, who do I want to be when I'm 45? That's like, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, we just have different priorities now. Different. Like who do I want to be when I'm 45? I want to be healthy. I want to be at peace. And I want to be one of the best version of myself. So now at 42, when I really want to go out tonight to go dancing or something like that, as an example, I'll ask myself, okay, what can I do right now? I mean, like last night I was so tired from this really long day. I really didn't want to meditate. I just wanted to go to bed. But I just stopped and asked myself, like, what can I do right now that will make me feel like I'm a better person tomorrow? That's it. And I was like, you know what? Just close your eyes for a moment. And I meditated for not a long period, but that was the question instigated the activity of meditation because I was feeling more into who am I going to be for the rest of my life? Not who do I need to be when I'm 42, because this isn't going to be the rest of my life.
And the other thing that sort of ties in with this, thinking about transitions, is the fact that it's a water rabbit year. So this is not the time to be going all like reflective and inward and
not too much. No, not too much. Because water likes to do that. And because we're water yin, which means water, excess water, we don't want to dive any deeper into this ocean that we're already in. Now, the rabbit energy is very much symbolic of earth energy, so springtime. So it's not that we're not supposed to go out there. We are supposed to have these outward spring-like energy. Like, I recommend for you, like, continue pushing with your podcast, continue doing all the brilliant stuff that you're doing on social media. But don't worry about being the divorce guru, for example. And I know that's not what you're trying to be, but I'm saying, like, so for me, like, it's like, okay, how can I still do what you're doing, still burst out and share with the world, but who do I want to be when I'm 50? Well, I hope to be a much better business person by the time I'm 50. Much, much better. And so instead of worrying about it right now, what can I do? Actually, I can make some tiny investments, tiny investments, which is what I'm doing. And I mean, they're tiny. Check this out. Like, I got this from a TikTok finance person.
What's the actual?
I know. But I actually really enjoy their channel. Every day, open your account, and the last digit on your account, move it to a savings account. Yeah. And then just do this every day for a week and see what you save.
Nice.
Things like that. And I thought that was really interesting. And so, I'm playing with activities like that. So there's small amounts. They're not like, you've got from 1 to 9, like each day. You're not going to be moving more than 9 pounds per day. It's not a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And so if I spend these early years of my 40s experimenting with this stuff, it's going to prepare for the entrepreneur that is to be born in my mid 40s.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing you'd said to me at the training was it's about refining at the moment, like working, trying stuff, I guess, and seeing what sticks and what creates opportunities. Oh, Jambo.
Was that helpful?
That's been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love talking to you. Could talk to
I
you
love
forever.
I know I love talking to you too, and I always hope that these things I come across clear and with some useful advice, because it's very easy to just get caught up in the conversation and forget that other people are listening to this.
No, you definitely made some really interesting points. And in terms of the body work sequence you've shown, we'll link in the show notes to like the points where they actually are so people can find them.
Great.
I love that.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jambo.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. I hope I see you soon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. All right. Big hugs and happy birthday week.
Thank you. You too.
Love you.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time for another episode of Happily Ever After with me, Hannah Harvey. It would be wonderful if you could leave a review and subscribe. And of course, if you've got a friend who might enjoy this episode, then please do pass it on. For anything else, you can get in touch with me through either Instagram at mumsdays or through my website, mumsdays.com.